From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas at Stunning Digital Marketing. And today I have Joshua Hammer from Security with me to talk all about website security. This is one episode you don't want to miss. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. This podcast is sponsored by Stunning Digital Marketing, the agency that can help protect your WordPress website today. Go to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and see what we can do to help you protect your business investment. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here, and today I'm here with my guest Joshua Hammer, who's the Director of Sales at Security. How are you today, Josh?
Doing fantastic. Yourself, Rob?
Doing really good. Thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it. I always like security discussions because they're just interesting with everything going on in the world right now, right? So
Interesting and scary, but yeah, I agree.
What I would argue with you is knowledge helps the scary. Having been in that space for a while, I was sharing with you offline. I followed some legendary hackers when I got into the security side. So, of course, two were the founders of Apple, Steve Jobs and Wozniak. They were both phone freakers back in the day. And the other one who just passed away recently was the legendary Kevin Mitnick, the guy who ran from the FBI. Yes. And I had the pleasure of meeting him at a conference a number of years ago. And he had such a cult following in the space. It was just incredible. So anyway, I wanted to start off with how did you end up in the security business? It's always interesting to find out how that stuff happens.
I have a very eclectic work history. I did everything from collections to door-to-door sales. I sold vacuums for many years.
Wow.
And I went to school to become a computer programmer. And I kept trying to get out of sales. Just get me away from sales. I want to be in tech. And every time I went into a tech job, I'd end up back in sales. And the last company I worked for before Security did phone systems. And Mitel bought them out, and I was laid off. So I was looking for a remote job, and I came across Security. And I started as a chat agent, knowing absolutely nothing about security. And I kind of got the itch from there. So started working with them, and I'm a huge video gamer and board games and puzzles. And when I got into security, I found it was just like a bigger puzzle, and I just absolutely loved it.
Yeah. You mentioned video gaming. It's funny because that's one of my ways, even at my age. I'm 57 this year, down one, just playing video games. And I don't like all these new games. I'm like a classic early 80s, 70s kind of guy. So I have a Space Invaders original console that's been totally refurbished. The electronics are new, but the cabinets like 79 period that. And I must own 5 or 6 classic video games, including a Mattel Intellivision and a Coleco, whatever it was called. I certainly have an original Atari and a few others. So, I can appreciate that. It seems to be common with us people who work in tech. We like video games.
Yeah, man, that old ColecoVision, I grew up on that.
Yeah. Me, it was Space Invaders. Yeah, so much fun. Um, Security, hot topic right now. We are seeing a higher and a higher and a higher increase in security issues in the WordPress space in the last 6 months, I would say. Do you think AI has anything to do with that? Or do you think it's just the hackers are getting smarter and the programmers are getting lazier?
No, no, I do think AI has a lot to do with it. It, and it's programmers and corporate America, right? Because as AI gets smarter and is able to program, corporate America is outsourcing a lot of the programming jobs to AI.
Mhm.
Um, and well, if AI is writing the code, AI knows how to break the code too. So I do think that has a ton to do with it.
Yeah. It's funny because I was looking at some trends the other day. And I think I first started an increase was when COVID hit and we were all stuck at home and couldn't go anywhere. And I think that's where the hackers kind of started to ramp up their game because they were all bored. So they were bored. So they decided to ramp up their game. So I think the increase actually started before AI became prominent. How would you feel about that?
Well, I will say during COVID, we were definitely busy cleaning websites, and we did see an uptick. Um, However, after COVID, it returned to pre-COVID levels for us.
Okay.
Uh, so I did see the uptick while everybody was quarantined, but after that kind of let up, um, we kind of went back down. But
That's
now I'm
interesting.
seeing another uptick again.
Yeah.
So
It's just really interesting. Um, Would you say the number one problem with people coming to you guys at Sakuri, because you do work with GoDaddy's clients, you do work with all kinds of clients, is clients don't have a backup? Is that pretty common at that point?
yes, backups would be so helpful. That's a big issue, and the other one is out-of-date software. I can't
Yep.
harp on that enough. Everybody that comes to us has an out-of-date program.
Yeah. I looked at a site the other day. I offer security care plans, and that's a big part of what I do. And I do security updates on sites now 3 days a week because I don't think one day is enough anymore. I think the time from a vulnerability to the time of exploitation is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Do you have any theories or stats on that?
The only stat I have on that is that we put up a honeypot server with
Yep.
a default username and password. It was compromised in 15 seconds.
Wow. Wow, that tells you a lot. And for those who don't know, a honeypot is basically a simulated server that lets them throw a server on the network that tells the internal people on that network if they have any vulnerabilities, right? That's really what it's used for in a layman's terms.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So
It's
that would,
basically a trap so that we could see how quickly it's going to get compromised.
15 seconds. That's got to be a record, Josh. That's pretty bold to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah. It shocked us all. We figured it would take a couple hours at least, but
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
the bots got it right away.
Yeah, and that's what people don't understand. Like they say, oh, there's individuals doing this. A lot of these people are what we call bots or script kiddies. They go out and they buy rootkits. They go out and they buy software to do it, and then they basically launch those bots. And everybody says, oh, why would they attack my small business site? It's not your site they want. It's the bigger site. So they use the small business sites to attack the bigger sites. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, Easily most attacks are non-targeted and
Yeah.
just script kiddies out there combing the web for an easy target. Um, we've done blog posts on why people hack, and it's usually they're building their network of bots.
Hmm.
They're using those servers to, it was crypto mining was big for a while. It's not so much anymore.
Yep.
But they'll use your server for hardware resources and use that to attack the bigger sites that are targeted.
Yep. And it's funny because I used to be involved, I'm not anymore, with an organization called the Ontario Police Memorial. So they're a provincial nonprofit. And what they do is they honor fallen police officers once a year. First weekend in May in Toronto, there's a memorial where we honor. And I can remember one year, I used to maintain the blog that um, they did the live streaming to. And I stood there and watched during the ceremony one year, and this website took over 10,000 bot attacks during the ceremony itself. So in that case, I would be apt to tell you that was a targeted attack, not a targeted attack, not just some bots crawling, but still, that's pretty remarkable when you think about it, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, where do you guys stand from the standpoint at security, knowing the product as well as I do? Um, I would say you strongly believe in software firewalls on websites, and why?
Yeah, we prefer the reverse proxies over a plugin, only because one of the more common attacks is a denial of service attack, right? And plugins are very vulnerable to that type of attack, whereas a reverse proxy is better at stopping those kind of attacks.
Yep, there is truth to that. Um, with your software, do you typically you put I assume I know you put rules in so that if a new vulnerability comes out and it's a big one, you'll put a rule in to say stop this vulnerability kind of at the top level, or do you just kind of let other stuff take care of it?
Depends on the vulnerability, right?
Yep.
So we're actually unique because we have not only signatures, but some holistic learning engines that protect specific types of websites. So when we scan your site and we find out it's WordPress, we're going to put up specific rules for that site that
Yep.
blocks just WordPress attacks.
Yep.
Um, we do have our research people, our vulnerability research people who look at things and tweak things on a daily basis. But our last report, 93% of 0 days were blocked before we had to do anything. So,
Wow. That that's pretty good actually. I'll take that.
yeah.
That's that's a good one. And as we were saying before we went to record, a big problem with all this hacking is if we could just get small business owners to make sure they have backups of their website. And I have to tell you, I'm not a big fan of no matter who the host is, and that could be GoDaddy, that could be WP Engine, it could be any of the big ones. I still believe that site owners need to make sure backups are taken at the site level as well as the host level. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, no, I agree completely. I don't care
Yeah.
who the host is. The host is taking care of the host. I
Yeah.
hate to say it, but it's very true. Even when a host says, hey, we provide a firewall, they may provide a firewall for the server, but they're not protecting your site.
Yeah.
Um, so those site level backups are huge, and keep them
Yep.
off-site site level backups.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I actually do when I do backups because I was sharing with you, I come from my healthcare background. I generally do for my clients, I do updates typically on a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday. That's when I do because we know the time for a vulnerability being found to the time of exploitation is shrunk by the year. Like it's pretty close now. So I like to make sure we catch them. And then the other thing I do is I keep backups offsite for 6 months for clients. And you say, why does Rob keep 6 months? We've all seen cases where your site was infected today, but the payload wasn't released for a month. I've actually seen that happen. So sometimes you got to go back before the payload was infected.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the longest one I've seen is 3 months. So 6 months
Yeah,
is
I've seen that.
usually,
Yeah,
and it's smart of the hackers. I mean, because people roll back to a week ago and they're still infected.
they're still
So
infected. Yep. And that
yeah,
happens all the time. And the other thing I got to stress with backups, and you know this, I know this, but for viewers and listeners, is please, folks, test them. I've seen too many times where people say, "Oh, I've got a backup. I'm going to save money." And I'm like, "Okay, so which Google Drive did you throw it on?" "Oh, I don't know." "Did you ever do a restore to make sure it works?" "No." And then you get in and the backup is just a disaster. And I've seen that happen way too many times in my career. There's a reason major financial companies do disaster recovery days to make sure their backups work, right? So let's test.
absolutely. Or you find out you're backing up just the site and not the database, and your database is infected, or you're backing up the database and not the site, and
Right?
you go to restore and it just doesn't restore everything.
I'm sort of laughing at you, but I'm not because I think I've seen all these before, and it's just we're just kind of nodding our head, all of us who play in this space. Um, Update. So we talked about the other problem is people don't update enough, and I think I'm in the position right now. If you're a small business owner and you're not going to update your site, you better pay somebody to do it for you. And better still, and I don't care who it is, just pay somebody to do it because you're compromising your business integrity and taking the attitude that, oh, it won't happen to me. Well, I can show you two cases where it's happened with clients that moved away from me, and when they moved away from me, they didn't have a backup. And they told me a month before they didn't need me. So I've seen it. Updates is a big problem, isn't it?
Absolutely. I always look at patch notes on
Yep.
these updates as a basically a guide or a targeted hit list, right? So as a
Mm-hmm.
hacker, I can look at that update and go, hey, there's an update here. And they're vague. It's a security update in this section. They don't tell you exactly what the security vulnerability is, but now I know where to target my attacks is in this section. So
Yep.
why wouldn't you update? Because basically the company is telling the world, hey, this is where we have an issue.
Yep. And I think not only that, since we're talking about software, so the approach I take is even with WordPress core. So when a new version comes out, I usually pretty well update within 48 hours. I'll usually wait 24 to make sure nothing goes wrong, but I'm pretty quick on the mark for that exact reason. Because if there's a security patch in there, and when 652 came out, there was no 651. There was major cross scripting problems in there, and it was like I looked at the patch and said, "Oh, this has to go in like now." Goodbye. And that's kind of the way I work there. Now, I don't like turning auto updates on. Do you have any preference what you would rather uh, teach people to do or not to do there?
I would say it depends. If you're on top of your stuff, yeah, turn it off.
Yeah.
If you are like me, who I have a hobby website that I touch once a month, then I'm
Okay.
going to turn on auto updates because I'm not in there often enough to make sure that it's updated all the time. I'm just too busy. So, as a small business owner, if you're not in there on the daily basis or 3 times a week to check for those updates, then auto updates better for you than not updating at all.
Yeah, I would agree. But then you're at the risk of an update breaking something, and I think a lot of that depends on you got to be careful of what plugins and what software you're using as part of your WordPress stack. Like really, I mean, it's time people need to learn to stop going to every cheap free plugin out there because you've got no support, and that's a bit of a problem in a crunch, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for heaven's sake, please, if you turn off a plugin and you're not using it anymore, remove it. Don't leave it there.
Themes the same way. I don't know how many times I look at a new install that I take over, and 2021 there, and 2020's there, and so free version Astra's there, and they're not using any of these themes. Like, and by the way, disabling it is not good enough, because if you disable it, the code's still there. You physically got to delete it totally.
Yes. Because that's still a vulnerability, and chances are, since it's disabled, you're not updating it. So
let's move on to the other problem, passwords. Oh, my favorite topic. So with passwords, a lot of sites and a lot of software is now going to passkeys. We're seeing more and more of that. I know even in the SaaS world, companies like PayPal and Amazon have gone to passkeys recently. Thank God. I think that's a good move. How do you feel about passwords, and even more so, two-step authentication with passwords?
as a security person, I love it.
Yeah.
As an individual, I hate 2FA. I'm
I
always
knew that
leaving
was
my
coming.
phone in the other room.
Yeah.
And I go to log in and it's like, son of a, and I got to walk in the other room to grab my phone and come back.
Yeah.
But absolutely, it's more secure. I mean, I love the UB keys. Those are fantastic.
I have to. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely love those.
Yeah. If you're going to go to YubiKey, you need to, because you need a backup. If you lose your original, then you're not up a creek without a paddle. So I actually have a backup that I update regularly that sits in a fireproof safe for that exact reason.
Yeah, I keep one with me because I do a lot of work off of my phone. So sometimes I need to plug the dang thing into my phone to get past something.
Yeah. What do you think of password managers like Bitwarden or 1Password?
I love them. I use LastPass myself. I know they've had a few compromises recently, but passwords are so encrypted that after they report a compromise, by the time I change them, there's no way anybody's gotten the password. So
yeah, I've been a Bitwarden user, but I think, and I would say, if you're really scared about using a password manager, one of the cool techniques is add 4 letters at the end of every password and make them the same. So when you insert the password, so I do that. So say the password is Toronto 1234, folks. It's not, so good luck. I'll throw 4 letters at the end of that password that's not in my Bitwarden vault. So even if Bitwarden was to get hacked, I've got 4 letters that goes at the end of every password that's not there. That's an interesting technique and been talked about a lot, actually.
This is the first time I've heard it, and it's a really good idea. It's a really good idea.
And then the other concern around passwords is logging out of sites, because there's been discussion in a lot of communities that what's creeping up is what we call cookie attacks or session cookie attacks. So that means the cookie that keeps you logged in, somebody steals. And we're not talking the person that goes to the public library. We're talking the person at home. His home laptop gets hacked. His business laptop gets hacked. What the hacker grabs is nothing but the session cookie, puts it on another machine, and guess what he has access to? Are you guys seeing any increase in session cookie problems, or is that just kind of sitting there in the background?
No, we definitely see an increase on it. Definitely seen an increase. Most of us use a browser that as soon as you shut down, it deletes all the history. But yeah, those security is funny, right? Because the easier it is to use, the less secure it is. And the more secure it is, the harder it is to use. It's finding that balancing act.
Yeah. And it's funny.
So where
it's funny when you talk about using a browser. I know when I do banking, you're going to laugh. I actually do banking one of 2 ways. I either do it off my smartphone, because your app can only connect to the bank. Or if I'm going to do it on a PC, I do it in a virtual machine that only is used for the banking. And then when I'm done, I delete the VM and start a new one, because that's how I know I am.
Yeah. Welcome to the security world, sir.
Yeah, I know. I know. So if you were to have at Sakuri, besides buying the product, which is a good idea if you don't have something, if you had three quick tips to give somebody worried about a WordPress website, what would they be right off the top?
Right off the top, I would say record your install size so that you know how big the site is. It's an easy way to know if code has changed just looking at file sizes. It's cheap, it's free. So that would be one. Number two, as we said, keep it up to date. Check for your updates on a daily basis. Um, and number three is don't install plugins that aren't vetted, or that you find on a, oh god, this is old school, Aware's site, or a pirated site, because yeah, you get it for free, but you don't know what other code's been attached to it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the fourth thing I would suggest is get involved in a group or some help of people you trust, because I think security is all based on trust, right? It's not.
Absolutely.
So it's like, why do you run WordPress? Because we trust them, the WordPress Foundation updated. Why do you run this plugin? Because we trust the vendor. So I don't get bent out of shape the way most people do. They see a vulnerability list of 300 and they say, oh, we have a problem with WordPress. Well, I would argue what I'm more concerned about is how many of those 300 were not updated and how many are 0 days. That's the kind of stuff I worry about. Not so much, oh, ABC plugin got a vulnerability and then it was fixed. Well, if it's a major vendor and it's fixed, then the vendor did their job, right?
Yeah. It is impossible to write software without vulnerability. I don't
Yep.
care who you are, even the AIs out there cannot write software without a vulnerability. There's going to be an error somewhere. And it's finding those errors and patching them. I will trust a company that shows me they fixed it than a company that tells me they have no errors anywhere on their software, because that just means they're hiding the errors from me.
Yeah. Or they have a history of having major vulnerabilities. So one of those plugins I look at is Contact Form 7, which is a WordPress free contact form. Do you realize how many vulnerabilities Contact Form 7 has had in the last 3 years? I just shake my head. Too many. I mean, that almost to the point of being excessive as far as I'm concerned. I mean, and then you get stuff like anything based out of Elementor. What most people don't realize is the Elementor backend that all the plugins use is the same software kit that the primary one uses. So when one gets hit, they all get hit. And I think the worst one we saw was it about a year and a half ago. And I don't want to pick on them because I think Vova and his team do a really good job up at Freemius. But there was a vulnerability that came out in Freemius. So every site that used Freemius got compromised. I think the list was like 500 or something silly like that, if I recall.
I swear they had one like 6 months ago, but I don't know. Time in the security field, it's weird.
Yeah,
I could think it was 6 months and it'd be a year and a half, but
I think it was a year and a half. I think it was longer, but I don't think they handled it bad. They patched it right away. It was just because it's everywhere. It compromised way too many sites, right? So
well, and that's the thing, right? The more popular the software is, the more it's going to get hit.
Yep.
I know for the longest time, we heard all the time, Apple doesn't get viruses. Apple
I knew you
doesn't
were
get
going to go there.
viruses, and
Yeah.
Apple doesn't get used as much as PC. So of course PC is going to be hit more. Well, WordPress is the same way. WordPress owns what, like 90% of the market share?
Yep.
So it's not that it's not secure, it's just more attacked.
Yeah, it's true. Speaking of market share, I assume Sakuri does things besides WordPress. What other platforms do you guys cover?
We are completely platform agnostic, so we'll work with anything, even custom PHP sites or any coded site that you build. We do have specific rules for Drupal, Magento, even some of their older software that doesn't exist anymore.
Okay. So if
Which I can
somebody
understand. Every time they update those systems, man, moving from 1 to 2 was a pain with those other software. I will say that is great about WordPress, the ease of updates.
no question on that one. And I think less and less people are using like Drupal. Drupal's used in big enterprise solutions, but even a lot of universities have moved to WordPress in the last couple of years. We always talk famously, the two sites are whitehouse.gov and Taylor Swift. Cannot get through a conversation. Her latest website is actually based on WordPress with Cadence, believe it or not. So people forget about that. So the Swifties can all relax and say WordPress is taking care of their girl. So if somebody was looking at a security solution, what are the three big highlights of the security that you guys provide that other people don't or do better?
Um, well, I'm going to tell you that you want to ask around and find what's right for you. But
Yep.
some of the questions that I like to ask are when you're doing a cleanup on malware. Unfortunately, most people are responsive, right? They don't get security until something's happened. When you do that, make sure that whatever solution you're getting is not just automated.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of bait and switch in this area, unfortunately, where they charge you for an automated cleanup and then they come back and tell you, well, the system can't get everything. You need a manual cleanup. Let's charge you more. And that is one thing that I am so utterly against. I hate the
Yeah.
bait and switch.
So do I.
The second thing is find out exactly what the security platform does for you. No security platform is going to be 100%. For example, we offer a firewall, we offer malware removal, we offer monitoring, but we don't do vulnerability scanning yet. So is that something you're interested in? Then maybe you want to look at something like PatchStack for vulnerability scanning.
Yep.
It's really a layered approach, right?
Yep. I agree.
And the third thing is, what are you looking to avoid? Are you looking for something that's going to give you the best scanning out there? Or are you looking for something that's going to give you a better firewall? How many sites do you have? Are you looking for something that's going to protect all the sites or a single site? These are all questions you got to have answered before you come in, because they're all questions that the security agent's going to ask.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many people we talk to that have no clue how many sites they have on their server.
No, they
It
don't.
dumbfounds me.
Well, and that's another thing. I mean, if you've got some really high volume sites, if it were me, I would have one site per server because then you risk the cross contamination. So if they're that high volume and that critical, you should think about the type of hosting you have too going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hosts make it fantastic that you can put 100 sites on one host in one
That
hosting
I
account, and they don't charge you everything, right? But when one of them gets hit, they all get hit.
yeah.
Because once you're in the environment, you're in the environment, and you can do anything you want while you're in there.
Yeah.
For less technical, I would say think of a hosting environment like your house, right? Each site in that house is a different room. Once they're in your house and have access to every room.
That's true. So true.
So,
Yeah, that's a lot for the average person to think about. Hey, Josh, this conversation's been really great. Thank you for jumping on today. If somebody wants to find out more about security or have a conversation, how's the best way?
just come to our website, sucuri.net, and hit chat. We have chat agents 24/7 that can answer any questions. If you want to talk to me, just ask for Hammer. There is another Josh on there, but I'm the only Hammer there. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, and you have an amazing day, my friend. Be well.
You too.
Thank you. This show is brought to you by StunningDigitalMarketing.com, your Toronto leader in digital marketing services. Not only do we protect your WordPress website, we can help you with your site, provide social media management for your business, or even do one-on-one consulting. To find out more, go to stunningdigitalmarketing.com. A very special thank you to Joshua for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much. I love you, and I think about you every day. For more information about Stunning Digital Marketing, your digital marketing experts, go to stunningdigitalmarketing.com or go to stunningdigitalmarketing.info to find out all the great places that Rob Cairns can be found on the web.